What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 746. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, OTJ, baby, you been drafting?
Yeah, I've actually got 3 trophies on Magic Online.
Ooh, real trophies.
Out of 4 drafts, so 2 on the other one. So
wow.
And then I did some arena drafts too, but I wanted to play best of 3, and I've been enjoying it greatly so far.
So you're 11-1?
And then a couple arena drafts in as well.
Wow, nice work. We are going to be doing a little metagame breakdown, week 1 style here for you on Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and I got to say I am excited for it because this set has been sweet so far. I feel freed from the shackles of the one drop, Luis, and we're going to be talking about that on the show this week. Before we get into that, we want to thank our patrons over on patreon.com/limited resources. And that's everybody who supports us directly on Patreon. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your help. And it means a lot to us to provide that kind of baseline for us so that we can be a little pickier about sponsorship, so that we can take our time with stuff like that and still have the show carry on. So thank you very much for that. If you want to sign up, you get a thank you card and a sticker in the mail, no matter what level you're at. And you get to ask questions on things like the Patreon question of the week thread, or when we have a guest come on, or when we do one of our favorite episodes each cycle, which is our Q&A episode. We have put up a specific thread for that one. And no matter what level you're at, you get to put your questions there too. So thank you to everybody on there. We're also sponsored by Ultimate Guard. That is the place to go to get the absolute best in the business. If you're looking for sleeves, deck boxes, ways to carry your decks around, Ultimate Guard has you covered. They are awesome at this. And you can tell from the very get-go that they took the approach of quality first at Ultimate Guard. And you can tell, I'm telling you, if you've never held an Ultimate Guard deck box or even just sleeves in your hand, you'll just be like, wow, these are nice. Like, it feels solid in your hands, really good materials and really well thought out with magnetic clasps and the, textured where it should be, but soft where it shouldn't and all that kind of stuff. Really well done, well thought out products from Ultimate Guard. That's one of the many reasons that we wanted to be sponsored by them, and we thank them for their sponsorship of Limited Resources. If you want to find anything from Ultimate Guard, you can go to ultimateguard.com to check out their product lineup. And if you want to pick something up, you can head over to your favorite online retailer or your local game store. Okay, we got a bunch of stuff to do here, Luis. Should we start with the crack-a-packs?
Let's start with a bit about the format, and then we can talk. The crack-a-packs will drive some of that discussion.
So how about before we do the format itself, I want to talk about your draft league.
Yeah, this is actually not OTJ related, but the Discord server I run, the Divination. That's after one of my favorite cards. We're doing a Vintage Cube draft league, and it's actually too late to join this one. I believe it's because it started off about a week and a half ago. Uh-huh. But the plan is to do this pretty much monthly. There's an invite link to the Discord in the show notes. And I got a huge shout out to the mod team. They've done the lion's share of organizing this. But basically what it is, it's team draft 3-on-3, free to enter. And I'm putting up some prizes for my own collection. There's a link to a Twitter post that I showed recently, which has.
What can I win?
So if you are successful in the draft league, let me see, where did that go? First prize is going to be like 2 copies of the One Ring, unlimited demonic tutor, 2 unlimited soul rings, a mana drain, some signed lightning bolts, and of course a bunch of katanas and boulders. And there's prizes for the top 4 teams. I'm putting it up just because I want people to enjoy Vintage Cube Draft. Hopefully this gives you people a reason to do so. And there's also there's people looking for teammates every month. Like, there's a free agent list you can put yourself on. So if you don't have a team, you can kind of assemble one, and you play like 3 matches a week. Plus, if you want to play a few more, you can do tiebreaker matches. It's very relaxed. Everyone's having a great time. Again, the whole point is to have fun. And I just wanted to kind of facilitate that because I've had a ton of fun being able to draft Vintage Cube at all times and do it in the team format, which I think is just the best way to draft it. So definitely check that out if you're interested.
To do this?
What's that?
What do people need to do this? Like, I need to get on the Discord. Then, like, do I have to pay? Do I need the cards on Magic on? Like, how does this all work?
So the way this ends up working is you are responsible for having all the cards, but you can use a rental service, something like Mana Traders or Card Hoarder, whatever you prefer. We're not sponsored by any of those. Just whatever you want. That's what a lot of people do. You can pay something around less than $15 a month. Usually, will get you enough of a rental limit to rent pretty much all the vintage cube cards. And actually, even with the release of OTJ, I forked my cube list into 2 different lists so that people didn't have to get all the new cards right away. You could draft the pre-OTJ list or the post-OTJ list. So I am going to merge those pretty soon here, just because I think that it's eventually that's just going to be the cube.
Right.
And it's just not that expensive to do that, like $15 a month to do as many drafts as you want. And if you really are in it for the long haul, you can get all the cards. Okay. That is a little bit pricier, but of course, if you would prefer to have all the cards, then that's a pretty reasonable way to go about things too.
And then the drafts happen on Draftmancer.
Yeah, we use Draftmancer the same way. If you have seen any of my cube videos that we draft on that. It's a really easy to use program. It's just a website and you just go to it. You can make a draft. I actually have a little video tutorial on the Discord that shows you kind of the instructions on how to do that. And
dude, this is cool.
People have had a ton of fun. It's just a lot of good cube gaming. I can't promise the prizes will be quite as generous every month, but I wanted to kind of kick it off with a bang, and I wanted folks to get excited for it. So that's kind of where that came from. But
dude, that is really cool.
I just like people playing. That's pretty much all that's going on. So hopefully, if you're interested in that, you check it out and enjoy it.
Yeah. So, and I'll put a link in the show notes for the Discord invite, right? So people can just click on that and join the Discord, right? Yeah.
And if you have any issues, you can also just tweet at me or DM me on Twitter or whatever. I'll get you sorted out.
Okay, that's really cool. And then along the same lines, I was talking to a patron in the chat actually for the live recording of the show here. Because if you are a patron, one of the other things that you get access to is we do record the show live every time, and you can join in the chat while we're recording and also before and after. And then also you can watch that version of it if you want after. You get access to it even if you can't make it when we're actually live. But it's AE Funk, and he told me, his name's Alex, that we had a chat many years ago, a few years back in Vegas. And I remember chatting with Alex about it. But they have a live draft league that's going now into its 12th season. So that's nice. Similar to what you're doing, Luis, just in IRL, and it's a team draft LA. So we wanted to give a shout out to them and to AE Funk. I think that's awesome. I mean, this is some of the coolest stuff. The stuff you're doing, Luis, plus this. Either one, these leagues are sweet. There used to be a cube one that went here in Seattle that I did this is a long time ago now. But they're really, really fun. You get these fun rivalries, nothing too serious, but these guys again, we got to beat them. they got us last time, that type of stuff. Really, really fun. So,
I mean, Martel's grinding in it right now. Like, he's got his team, he's battling. And, I when he wins, I hear about it. When he loses, I definitely.
I love Tom. That's perfect. So anyway, awesome stuff with that. Now let's get into some of our thoughts on the format. And we'll start off with our Patreon question of the week to kind of lead us in. This one comes from David, who says, what's your first thoughts on the new format speed-wise? Did they listen, or is it too early to tell? And what are your opinions of a format with so many must answer threats? It seems like this one is loaded with them. Thanks as always. Timeline wise, David, this would be too soon for our whining to have translated into anything. So anything that you see here is going to be because of how they designed the set just naturally, though.
Also, to be clear, the whining isn't distributed equally between the two of us. So
yeah, well, I do more like strong advocating for our base, and you do most of the whining. I agree.
Right.
But I did mention, I believe it was last week on the show, that I did have a few chats with some of the designers at Wizards of the Coast, and they said this stuff's very much on their radar, and for Limited as well. So mission accomplished. It's there. I'm sure that they found it on their own as well. But at any rate, the turnaround time for that is longer than this set. So yeah, but what do we think about the speed of the format? So far, I'm 5 drafts in, I think, at this point, and I have not felt that that feeling that you have where like if you just skip a beat at some point, you're going to get buried. I haven't felt that so far. This has felt a lot slower than the prior formats.
Yeah, it definitely is. A lot of the one drops are actually just a desert, right? That's your one drop. You're spending your 1 mana on turn 1 by playing a tap land. There are aggro decks. I drafted like a really fast green-white deck that was awesome that had like 3 Congregation Glyphs, 2 of the 1 mana 1/1 fairies, a bunch of like the 2. There's a lot of 3 power 2 mana creatures. So those are fast. But overall, you have time to cast Villainous Wealth for 13. I did that earlier today too.
We're going to talk about that too.
And I've had a number of games where either I was blue-white or they were blue-white, where the game went down to both of us having 10 or fewer cards in the deck. And, we were just kind of trading card for card. And in those kinds of games, like, yeah, if you get too far behind, it's not great, but it's not like you don't lose if you don't have a 2-drop on the draw by any stretch. And I've even had games where like my first play was, on turn 4 really, and that was just not that bad. There's a lot of ways to kind of mitigate that. There's also like just a lot going on that makes kind of playing a little bit slower actually work out fairly well.
Yeah, and that's, that sort of sets the stage, right, for what we want to see at least out of this new format. I'm actually just going to check and see. It's way too early to take too much away from it, but I am curious. Yeah, it looks like the speed of the format's still pretty quick here. It's in the quicker realm currently, but we'll see how that ends up. And as we also talked about with Sirkovitz at one time, speed of the format doesn't just mean aggression. It can mean other things as well. So what are your broad strokes thoughts on the format? What has stood out to you so far?
This is week 1. Things will change. But right now, green seems like the early front runner in terms of color quality. With like the way I see it is like green's leading the pack, blue's trailing behind the pack, white and black are after green, and then red's a little bit after white and black. So that's at least kind of where I see the format breaking out.
Yeah, that's what I looked up that little range of numbers that I like to do on just the commons for each color this morning, and that is basically reflective. Green is definitely ahead of the pack and by itself, and then white and blue are tied for second, and then white and black are tied for second, and then blue and red are tied for third, if you will, or fourth and fifth.
Yeah.
From commons, at least.
Yeah. And then, when I look at kind of like the color balance, it does seem like right now, yeah, green's definitely ahead. That doesn't mean that green is not, or that you can't draft blue. In fact, I've drafted blue a bunch of times. Or that you have to draft green. These things will probably level out a little bit, but at least initially, that's kind of what things are looking at. Removal spells seem to be good again. They're back. It is actually a legit strategy to kill your opponent's creatures with removal spells. And this is, I think, for a few reasons. It's not that the removal is like that much better in this set than other sets. It is good, but it is, I think, more because there are more good expensive creatures to kill, and because the format is not quite as focused on 1 and 2 drops, which historically are pretty good against removal. So that has kind of made removal decks just be or removal spells specific, not even necessarily removal decks. So I think those actually are legit too. Work out a little bit better. Yeah,
the looking at the early 17 lands data here, the for black, for example, Consuming Ashes is your number 1 common. That's the 2 black exile removal spell. Next is Mourner Surprise, and then the one after that is Desert's Dew. So 2 of the top 3 commons in black are removal spells right now. So that's a good sign straight away. And then if you look at red, it's similar. Explosive Derailment is your best red common. That's the one that deals 4 damage. And then Thunder Salvo is number 4.
Yeah, I actually like Thunder Salvo more than Explosive Derailment, but that's because I've drafted blue-red a bunch of times, which I know is not actually the best deck either, like in terms of win percentage, but I found it to be effective. In any case, we'll talk about more specific decks later. Ramp seems to be a pretty good strategy. There's a number of things that support it. There's the Hard Bristle Outlaw, the 2 mana 1/1 that taps for any color. There's the uncommon 2/2 Reach that taps for a green. There's Dance of the Tumbleweeds, which goes and gets a desert and makes a huge creature. Like this is both a ramp enabler and payoff all in one, which I think is really important.
Yep.
There's some good big creatures to cast. I think that the cactus
Cactarantula.
Cactarantula, cactus spider is I mean, it's bonkers common. It's a 5-mana 6/5 reach that also has Leovold text, where like, but only for itself. Where if it gets targeted by a spell or ability, you draw a card.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, and it's
card.
supposed to be 6 mana. It's just that the deserts are very much a thing, and this thing's just cost 5 in any deck that's going to cast it almost all the time.
Yeah,
and that's a bargain for 5 mana.
Yeah, so I have liked drafting that card in deserts in specifically, but you know the curve does matter. Like I'm not saying you should do nothing. You're gonna get beaten by some trained Errances, the 3/1 first strike that scries when it attacks. You know the cards like that, and you could easily lose to a fast curve out draw from like a green-white or red-green deck. So. There's a lot going on in this format. I'm enjoying it. There's like the additional twist of all the breaking news cards. Like Villainous Wealth is the one that I in the draft I did earlier. I started on like 2 green cards, and then I had a red-white card, and I saw Villainous Wealth, and I just slammed it because I was already kind of going into deserts. At that point, I had gotten the 2 and a green 1/2 that goes and searches for a basic or a desert and gets ++1 per desert. I love that card. That card's been fantastic. So I saw that, and I'm like, okay, well, Villainous Wealth is in, and just built a deck that just sat there and just had a bunch of outlaw medics and cactarantulas and removal spells, and eventually cast Villainous Wealth for either X equal to their deck or just enough to beat them with all the cards I milled.
I mean, how did you get it up to 13? Like that's 16 mana total?
I had cast Hell to Pay, the red X, make X treasures above it, the creature's toughness. Oh. So I cast Hell to Pay for like 7 on a creature or 8 on a creature, and then next turn cast Villainous Wealth. It was like kind of excessive. I didn't really need to do all of that, but that is how
you needed to do all of that. You definitely needed to. That is amazing. I mean, you could have cast Emrakul, but you went for Villainous Wealth for 13 instead. That's awesome. What archetypes decks have you liked so far?
Well, first, let's talk about the ones that have been having the most success just in general, which is, first of all the green pairs. Like green-white, red-green, black-green, and blue-green. The blue-green is drawing up the rear, but still a very, very respectable win percentage. And that's kind of lined up with what I've seen. I've played against a good amount of that. White-black is pretty solid. It's got a bunch of good removal spells and some decent synergies. I have personally liked blue-white and blue-red and 5-color deserts. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I know that blue-white hasn't been winning that much when you look at the stats, which is why I don't think that they're to end all be all by any stretch. My impression is that blue-white, if you get the right mix of cards, can be really strong. Like it just has some good uncommon and rare payoffs for the things it wants to do. And blue-white control is just like a real thing. It, again, takes a higher rarity card, but guess what? There's 3 rares per pack now. You open a pack with 4 rares in it if you want. Yeah. And you could probably open a pack with 5 rares somehow. I can't claim to know how all that works.
There's probably a way.
And so as a result, I think that, if you open on, like a Wrath or a Dust Animus or you get, some cards in that realm, you can definitely draft a deck that takes advantage of that. Because blue has a lot of good support cards. It just doesn't have that really high common quality that you look for overall.
Totally.
So I think we can jump in by doing some crack-a-packs, and then we'll talk more about some of the different mechanics and decks and then some individual cards.
Okay, so first crack-a-pack up. And, this one actually has, this is kind of what you were talking about, Luis. It actually has 2 cards from the breaking news sheet. One of them is a foil, apparently. So that card is Fierce Retribution, which is the 1 and a white destroy target attacking creature. The cleave cost is 5 and a white. So if you pay 5 and a white, it's destroy target creature instead. Card's been fine. I played it.
I mean, it's kind of funny because it's very similar to Ariat's Lullaby, which is the sorcery, destroy a tapped creature, gain 2 life. And that actually makes me take both of them at a lower frequency because they do kind of the same thing. You get hit with the Lullaby, but then you gain the 2 life back. So it can often be close to a wash. I think Fierce Retribution is a little bit better, but I would really hope not to first pick it.
Definitely. Voracious Varmint is next. That's the 1 and a green 2/2, which with Vigilance, and you can pay 1 and sack it to blow up an artifact or enchantment.
This card is certainly playable, and there's plenty of targets for it. not a card that you really have to go out of your way to get, but it is a good one.
It is, and it's nice that they tacked Vigilance onto it too. Just like it just pushes it over that edge. Next is Reckless Lackey. That's the red 1/2 first strike haste, and you can pay 2 in a red and sacrifice it to draw a card, make a treasure.
So I do think this card is good, but my main kind of complaint about it is that I think red is more of a support color than a main color. So I haven't found myself wanting to take Reckless Lackey particularly high. Like when you're playing blue-red, it's like more blue than red, though part of the reason I think blue-red does suffer a bit is they're both support colors. Like they both can't quite lead the whole dance. So you do have to watch out for that. But I think Reckless Lackey is just okay. It's not a card I'm particularly enthused by.
I wonder where it's at. Here it is. It's it's at 53% games in hand win rate currently, very early, so don't take too much from it. But that does support what you're saying, Luis, which is that, red maybe not a primary color and therefore aggressive one drops will have a hard time finding a home. Next is Ariet's Lullaby. Wow, really proved your point there, Luis. That's the one in a white sorcery, destroy type creature, you gain 2 life, as you said, and we have both of them in this pack. So as you said, just these type of cards aren't usually the type of thing that you super need anyway. And now there's basically 2 of them floating around. So you need them even a little bit less. Yeah.
I wouldn't really go out of my way to take either.
Next is Desert's Dew. This card's been good, man. One in a black instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. It gets an additional -1/-1 until end of turn for each desert you control. So it's, starts off as kind of that standard issue, cheap black removal spell to kill small creatures, but it scales with the game if you're in the Deserts deck, and it just becomes like one of the best removal spells in the set if you're in the dedicated Deserts deck, because it'll just do -5/-5 at instant speed for 2 mana. Really scales nicely with that deck.
Yeah, no, this card's great. I wouldn't mind taking this one early because it starts out fine, and then even in a non-Deserts deck, it's pretty easy to get some amount of support for it.
Next is Phantom Interference. This is the blue instant with Spree. You can +3 it to make a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying, and +1 it to counter target spell unless its controller pays 2.
So this is actually one of the cards I really wanted to talk about because I think this card is quite bad. I don't think you should put this card in your deck. It's funny because when you look at it initially, well, the 1 in a blue counter unless they pay 2 with a minor effect has been really good the last couple sets. And this is more than a minor effect. This makes a 2/2 flyer.
Right.
And you can also just cast it as a 4-mana 2/2 flying flash if you don't have anything better to do. So from that, kind of from that perspective, it's like, well, why isn't this card good? And I think the answer is plot. If you leave up mana for this and their turn 3 play is plotting, you just got blown out. You wasted your entire turn. You didn't get to counter their spell. It also then is now later in the game where this spell gets worse. And when they plot the card, you have no chance of casting it because you end up in a spot where they have all their mana untapped. So I think that Phantom Interference is a sideboard card at best against like a deck that has a bunch of Cactarantulas and other expensive cards like that, but is not a card that I'm going to go out of my way to get, and it's not a card I've liked to main deck.
It's an interesting one. It's as we mentioned, blue, primarily a support color. It's in that bottom rung, the bottom 2 with red. But that being said, Phantom Interference is currently the best blue common. Yeah, and I think it will get worse over time. My instincts are similar to yours, where this is week. I mean, this is day 3, right? Like people are running into this card right now. And as we've seen time and time again, the metagame adapts. People recognize this card and they start going, oh, I'll just plot this thing and let you strand your mana. And I wouldn't be surprised if we track this card over time that it fell. Because people aren't just going to run cards into it like they are currently. Well,
I also think this is a huge disparity between Arena and Magic Online here.
Mm-hmm.
Best of 1 Arena players just have never played around this card in their life.
Right.
You play a best of 3 match of Magic Online against someone who went to the trouble of playing on Magic Online. The card is just not very good. Like Look, on the one hand, like if you're going to be playing mostly on Arena, then sure, you can get some more mileage out of this card. But if your goal is to do well in the Arena Open, do well in the Pro Tour, any of those things, I really don't think Phantom Interference is where you want to be placing your bets. I would be suspicious of that being a good card. I know it's been bad, and I've tried playing it a bunch. I've drafted blue like 5 times so far. And it is just not, it has continuously disappointed me.
Yeah, it is down 1 spot on the traditional draft, which really is, lacking in sample size at this point. But it already isn't the number 1 blue common anymore, even at that spot. And, what you said also mirrors what we had just said too, right? Which is that as time goes by, the arena players will also adapt. It's just, right now the Magic Online players they're just better players on average. So they're sort of pre-adapted. So you will see that card, I think, go down in value. Next is the other good blue common. It's Jailbreak Scheme. This is the blue sorcery with Spree. You can +3 it to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and make it unblockable. And you can +2 it to have target artifact or creature's owner put it on the top or bottom of their library. The second ability, being just a removal spell there.
Totally solid card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not unhappy to put that card in my deck and play it as like a kind of interactive spell. Plus, in the late game, like getting to cast it for 6 mana can be really effective. So
it really can. Yeah, I mean the thing with cards like this, these modal spells, we really like it when they have 2 abilities that are good at completely different stages of the game, and this one definitely has that. But it also just starts off with a baseline of a 3 mana sorcery removal spell, which is totally fine on its own. Like you don't even need the extra part to make that card playable. And when you get to free roll something that can situationally be very powerful, perhaps even game ending, that's really good. So yeah, where would you be now? Would you still be on Desert's Due? That's where my eyes are.
I don't think it's particularly close. Nothing else here is really that attractive, especially since I don't want to start on a blue card. My drafting predilections may be what they are, but I'm still not out there first picking blue cards unless they're like really high quality, high rarity ones.
Right. Next is a green card. It's the other card from the from this particular bonus sheet from the breaking news one. It's Tornado, which is the 2 and a green instant destroy a creature with flying, and you can cycle it for 1 and a green.
Yeah, I mean this card is fine. I've actually liked main decking it, and generally I'm going to take it like in the middle of the pack. I wouldn't want to take it over Desert's Due, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Next is Visage Bandit. This is our first uncommon. It's the 3 and a blue 2/2, and you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except for it's also a shapeshifter rogue in addition to its other types, and you can plot it for 2 and a blue.
I've liked this card, but I wouldn't want to start with it. Like I think you do want to end up in a spot where you have good creatures already to copy before just taking this card.
How does the plot work on this? Because it feels like it's telegraphing in a very like disadvantageous way, right?
Well, it kind of is. So if you plot this card, they might end up in a spot where they're like, well, I need to leave up removal, but they can't really do that. Like, let's say you plot this on turn 3. Yeah. And they have like explosive derailment, right? The 2 and a red deal 4 instant speed. If they leave that mana up and you're playing a blue deck with plot cards, what if your next turn is plotting a loan shark and saying go?
Oh,
they're just demolished.
Really bad. Yeah.
And they made Visage Bandit a little bit different than some of their previous clones, most of their previous clones even. It's a base 2/2. So if you put this card on the stack and then they kill your only creature in response, it does come in as a 2/2.
You still get a random 2/2 that actually and so outlaw too. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not completely a disaster in that particular spot. I think it's a card that the main drawback isn't that they could remove your stuff or that they see it from plot really. I think the main drawback is sometimes you draw it, you don't have a good creature to copy. But it's a great combo with Loan Shark. If you make those plays, like if you go plot, you took a bunch of damage, but then on the next turn you go cast a spell on turn 5, play a Loan Shark, draw a card, play Bandit, copy Loan Shark, draw a card, and then you end up in a spot where maybe you're at 10 life, but you now have 3 creatures in play and you've drawn 2 extra cards.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty good.
That's a good spot to rebuild for sure.
It's also really good when you're like copying like a Deep Muck Desperado. That's the 2/4 that mills them for 3, or a Slick Shot Lockpicker. Like there are some cards I really like copying with this. So I've liked the card. I would not take it over Desert's Due though. I still am not I'm not blue pilled that much.
Man, the 2/2, I never put that together until you just said that you have a backup plan. It's like that's a very nice, like, because I mean, obviously you hope for something way better with a clone, but at least you get something. Yeah, I mean, that high risk, high reward.
they cut the bottom 20% off the card, which is a pretty big upgrade.
It's huge. Next uncommon is Cactus Folk Sure Shot. This is 2 red-green for a 4/4 reach with Ward 2. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, other creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain trample and haste until end of turn. This card's nice.
That's what totally fine card. Like you just you can just cast the Sure Shot, and you get a 4-mana 4/4 with hard to kill because of Ward, and then it really threatens to do some big things. Like when you're just like putting big 7/7 tumbleweeds into play and whatnot, you're or Cactarantulas, like you're really pressuring the opponent. Would I take a gold card over Desert's Due? Yeah, I'd probably take this over Desert's Due, I think.
I think I would too. I'm also just at this point looking for an excuse to be in green and an excuse to play deserts, and this thing's a fine card for both of those situations. Next is Shoot the Sheriff. This is the 1 and a black instant destroy target non-outlaw creature. This one's been interesting.
Pretty good card. It can kill some big stuff.
It definitely can. It also, there are matchups where it really sucks.
Yeah, you play against black red or something.
And it's just like, wow.
A lot of they have like the 5/4 trampler and like you can't kill it. But against green, which is the best color, it does kill a lot of green's big monsters. Those tend not to be outlaws, and it's 2-mana removal spell, which is pretty good. Monocolor. Yeah, I think I'd probably take this because the other thing is, both Desert's Due and Shoot the Sheriff are pretty nice in the Deserts deck, and I like having splashable one pip removal. Mm-hmm. But no, actually, I'm still on the stupid Cactus. I think the red green beats deck is really good, and you can just play that. I think that works out.
One caveat with Shoot the Sheriff: I have had multiples, and they definitely fall off a cliff quickly.
Yes.
Like one is good. Like that's kind of
you don't want to end up in a spot where it can't. Your removal spell can't kill like their most important threat in a matchup, and then you have multiple copies of that. Like, I think if I had to Shoot the Sheriff early, I would probably take Desert's Due over the second one, and then try to maybe draft a few more deserts. But I'm not sure.
Next is Slick Shot Lockpicker. This is
Love this card.
Yeah, 2 and a blue, 2/3 with plot for 2 and a blue. And when it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost.
Yeah, so I think that being able to set this up makes this like one of the best versions of this card that we've seen, because you almost always plot this card unless it's like late game and you top deck it, then you just play it if you have enough mana. Just getting to basically play any spell, even like a 5-mana spell out of your graveyard is pretty nice. It works really well with this town ain't big enough, because that's the double bounce, but it only costs 2 mana if you're bounce one of your own. Because if you go like block Lockpicker, bounce my Lockpicker, bounce your big threat, replay Lockpicker, replay the thing, like you just get a lot of really good kind of interaction out of just that one combination. I think you're probably supposed to take the Cactus over the Lockpicker, and the same with the black removal spells. But the Lockpicker is on my list of cards that would like push me towards drafting blue. I think that this card is actually a pretty legit reason to do so.
Our last card is a mythic. It's Gisa the Hellraiser, the 3 black.
There we go.
Yeah, legendary human warlock. It's a 4/4 with Ward 2 and pay 2 life. It gives skeletons and zombies you control +1/+1 and menace. And whenever you commit a crime, you get two tapped 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature token disability. I'm so sorry to say, triggers only once each turn.
I mean, this card's just an unbelievably good card. So I think you should just take this card over in any pack you open it, pretty much.
Good time to talk about committing crimes as well. Committing crimes is a really nice mechanic. It is a low bar. In decks that care about it, you can definitely commit crimes effectively every turn if you'd like, but you get paid off usually in small increments. Of course, they took the gloves off with the big mythic rare here, and you just get a flood of 3/3s basically. So it gets stupid really, really quickly. But if you haven't yet drafted I really care about committing crimes deck, you can do it. Like you can commit crimes basically every turn if you want to. And that is the reason that cards like Gisa the Hellraiser is like an absolutely trivially easy pick. I mean, we talked about on the set review, I am in favor, if possible, of waiting until you can for sure commit a crime the turn that you play it and get your 2/2/2s that are getting pumped up just in case they untap and kill it. But, and so I would play that way unless I was under such pressure that I couldn't. But I mean, this card's just ridiculous. I mean, that card is just stupid.
It is very, very, very good. Like it's, in the running for like the top section of cards in the set.
Definitely. Okay, let's do another Crack-a-Pack. Our first common is Bristlepack Sentry. This is the 1 and a green 3/3 defender, and as long as you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it can attack as though it didn't have defender.
Yeah, it's a good card. I mean, clearly not a first pick, but it's a card that in the green-white deck, it really shines because it can saddle all your mounts pretty much. And, it also just hits for a lot when you play a 4-power creature. Like turn 2 this, turn 3 you play the 4/2 Trampler, and all of a sudden it's like, yep, there we go. I mean, that's right. The start you're looking for.
And even when it can't attack, it still does the thing that buys you the time to get to the mana to start casting 5 or 6 mana cards that'll unlock it. Next is, probably the premier aggressive common, the Trained Errinx here. This is the 1 and a white 3/1, and it's a mount, by the way. And whenever it attacks while saddled, it gains first strike, and you scry 1, and the saddle is 2.
Yeah, this card is really good.
Nice.
You just end up with a 3/1 first striking and scrying if you're on the front foot. Less good when you're on the back foot, but a 3/1 can still block an attacking 3/3. Mm-hmm. So I happy to start with this card and kind of play from there.
Yeah, really, really solid. And this is going to be the counterbalance. Like if you're thinking that this set is just going to be all deserts and nonsense, cards like Trained Errinx will be the fun police for sure. Next is Rodeo Pyromancers. This is a 3 and a red 3/4. And whenever you cast your first spell each turn, you add double red. I have not been impressed by this one.
No, I don't think that the double spell deck really needs this. And this card is just way too much mana for something that doesn't really do anything the turn you play it. Also, like, the power level in this set is like through the roof. These cards are really, really strong.
Extremely high.
There's a ton of cards in this set that, like, in other sets would have been among the best commons, among the best uncommons that are not really notable here.
That's right. And that's another reason a reason why I don't really like this next card either. It's Corrupted Conviction. This is a black instant and additional cost to cast to sacrifice a creature. You draw 2 cards. Man, I just haven't. Look, I've even had green-black decks, which has been kind of my pet archetype. Green-black with some blue for some reason. And I just don't want to sack my creatures. Like, the cards are nice, it's fine, but like I have found that more proactive forms of card advantage have served me much better, like digging things back up out of the graveyard and stuff, rather than after having to sacrifice onboard presence just for a couple of cards in hand. So I've been off of Corrupted Conviction.
Yeah, I mean, I think black white is probably the home for it, or red black with Take for a Ride, some of the threatens.
Yeah,
that can be decent too. But I it's not a card I'm going to prioritize by any stretch.
Next is Daring Thunder Thief. This is the 3 and a blue 4/4 with flash. It ETB's tapped though.
It's a playable card, especially if you're in the I want to pass the turn deck, but it's not a card I'm really that excited to play at any point. I've cut it a lot of times.
Yeah, and this is a perfect example of why blue's lagging behind a bit on power level. Card's okay, but it's not great. This card is more cute than powerful. Next is Phantom Interference. So that again is the mini mana leak or the 2/2. We've got a really nice what's it called? Breaking news card.
Oh yeah?
Mana Drain, baby.
Oh yeah, I did that. I'm going to Mana Drain, then I'm going to plot 2 Loan Sharks. It's going to be great.
So yeah, Mana Drain, blue counter anything, counter target spell, and then at the beginning of your next main phase, you add the amount of colorless mana equal to that spell's mana value. So yeah, I mean, this is an early pick in Vintage Cube, so we'll probably be taking it here as well. Although these limited sets are like
there's some cards that are high picks in Vintage Cube that wouldn't translate well to Limited, but I think this one is pretty solid. I think it's relatively quite a bit worse though.
Definitely. Uncommons, Map the Frontier. I want to get your take on this one. This is the 3 and a green sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and or desert cards. Excuse me.
Okay, I just checked. Mana Drain's the second most winning blue card. So after the 5/3 Sphinx.
Nice. So, okay. So if we do end up taking
it's not in the top like 75 of cards in the set, but it's still.
But if you're blue,
it's like 50th or something. I don't know.
It's where you want to be. Map the Frontier, 3 and a green sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land and or desert cards. Put them onto the battlefield, tapped, and then shuffle. This to me is a good inflection point about the desert/ramp deck. Can we play Map the Frontier, or are we foolish for putting this card into our deck by your estimation?
Oh, you can play this card. You just have to have kind of done your due diligence beforehand, which is
Bristleback Sentry.
Yeah, played a Bristleback Sentry, played Desert's Due, done that sort of thing. Because you really want to, you need to interact before you tap out on turn 4 to do nothing. But if you've done that, then this card can set up some nice plays. I suspect it's worse than Dance of the Tumbleweeds. Just because Dance is like a little like worse at ramping, but comes on a better ramp turn and then puts like a 7/7 into play in the late game, whereas the Map the Frontier doesn't definitely not do that.
Yeah. This is the one that you want for the type where you can untap, play a spell that could get you right back into the game, like your Villainous Wealth or something like that. Next uncommon is Plan the Heist. This is 2 blue for a sorcery. It says surveil 3 if you have no cards in hand, then draw 3 cards, and you can plot it for 3 and a blue.
I just don't think you want to spend that much mana on raw card draw. It's not the strategy I would endorse. So
me too.
I think that there are times when you want this card in your deck if you've got a lot of interaction. It's kind of like Map the Frontier, where if you have done a good enough job interacting, then your reward is you get to spend mana on something that doesn't affect the board. But overall, like, you should not be, planning to put this card in your deck and cast it anytime soon without doing a lot of that upfront work.
Yeah, I mean, the days of cards that just say pay some mana, draw some cards haven't been around for a long time. You need to affect the board these days, and there's plenty of ways to generate advantage, card advantage, or onboard advantage, or mana advantage that aren't just strictly exchanging mana and a card for more cards. Earmuffs the least, but cards like Divination have not been in vogue in a long time, and the more expensive for the more cards scales even worse. So like you're going to pay 4 mana for this one, and it just goes downhill from there. Next is Nurturing Pixie. This is the white 1/1 flyer, and when it enters the battlefield, you return up to 1 target non-fairy, non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand, and then if you did that, you get a counter on the Pixie as well.
Yeah, I've liked this in the aggressive like green-white decks. I think that, or red-white, something like that. I think the card totally is legit. Like, if you can cast it as like a 1-mana 2/2 flyer, which you can't cast till like turn 3 or 4 or something like that, but you can squeeze it in on a turn where you're not losing that much tempo by bouncing something, or you're bouncing something that actually is an advantage. Like, that can definitely happen too. You end up being very happy with the Pixie.
Yeah. It's just very playable card. Next one's good too. Omenport Vigilante. This is the 1 and a white 2/2 that has double strike as long as you've committed a crime this turn. It's interesting because it's a white card, which isn't like central to the crime committing vibes, but it can do enough. And, a 2/2 double striker is definitely worth working for.
Yep. I think this card's all right. It's not always going to be active the times you want it to, because like these decks like combat tricks, and combat tricks generally are not committing crimes. So it can be a little tricky, but like if you just play it and then you just play a desert and then attack them, now your combat trick's really good because it's already on.
Totally.
When they block, it just like you can just cast a trick and just go pretty hard. So I think that it's a solid 2-drop. Like I'm happy with it at 2 mana.
It also has a really nice threat of activation. Like you could just attack with it, and what are they going to do, right? Like they have to respect the fact that you may be able to commit a crime at instant speed, and all of a sudden they're dealing with a much different type of threat to block. We actually have 2. So we've already got 1 mythic rare with the mana drain, and we've got 2 other rares. So only 3 rares this pack. We got a foil Duelist of the Mind, the Nathan Stoyer card. This is the 1 and a blue star 3 with flying and vigilance, and his power is equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. And it says whenever you commit a crime, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card, and that happens once per turn at most.
Nathan's great.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very strong magician. I've liked him in Vintage Cube as well, and I wouldn't be unhappy taking them early, but I don't think he's as good as Mana Drain.
Right. Definitely. But Duelist of the Mind's cool. Like not only just in this set, but you said it's been working well in Cube, right? And like, and it's just a neat design too. And yeah, I want a card like that. Last rare, it's also blue. All three of our rares were blue. Is Fibblethip Lost on the Range. This is the 1 blue 1/1 legendary homunculus. It's got Ward 2. You can look at the top card of your library anytime the top card of your library has plot. The plot cost is equal to its mana cost, and you can plot non-land cards from the top of your library.
Yeah, not a card I'm that interested in. It's just, I think, way too slow. Yeah, certainly not slow. Even close to being the best blue card here. There's two other blue cards that are way better.
Yeah, the problem is the play, like the use case, right? You play this card out, but then you usually can't do anything with it. So then the next turn, if you want to get value, start plotting, but then nothing happens that turn either. And you spent 3 mana, and then whatever you spent the next turn for a 1/1. Right, over 2 turn cycles. Sure, after that stuff starts coming off of plot, and okay, now we're kind of cooking with fire. But like up until that point, you just leave the door wide open if you want to actually take advantage of this thing. Mana Drain. We're in. Drano. I love it. So that card, Fibblethip, lets you plot stuff, and I did want to talk about plot like as a mechanic in general, Luis, because it has been really good. In fact, it's been so good and works like elegantly enough that it kind of made me wonder, like, why haven't we seen this before? You know, we've seen, stuff that's sort of similar, but dang, this mechanic plays really nicely.
Yeah, I think plot is awesome. It's been a really pleasing mechanic, and I think that's for a couple reasons. One, it feels really good to just be able to play the card for free. You've already paid for it. It's not like Foretell. Like Foretell, you foretell it and then you have to pay for it again. Mm-hmm. And maybe you save mana overall. Maybe you didn't. Depends on the card. Maybe it's break even and you spent 2 to foretell it and then it gets too cheap or whatever. But plot, it kind of feels like you're getting away with something, even though you aren't really most of the time. Like a lot of them, they have the plot equal to their cost anyway. Though some of them it is cheaper. Some of them is even more expensive. It just depends on the card. But the turn you play it for free, it feels very good. And I think they did a really good job with the designs such that you get to kind of combine them in ways that really work nicely. Like there's stuff like Loan Shark, like Slick Shot Lockpick, the Ornery Wolverine, like all those cards, like the plot makes those cards a lot better. You get to get a lot of value by plotting them. And it just ends up being a mechanic that's fun, a mechanic that's good, and a mechanic that you kind of end up feeling at all points like you're getting a good deal and it's working nicely and it's smooth and it's also face up. So there's none of this like, oh, okay, they foretold a card. Okay, what did they play game 1 or what are the cards in the set that they could have here? Right. Like it being face up, I think is just a nice quality of life improvement for all the people involved. So I think that plot is just an excellent mechanic. I agree with you. It's simple enough that it feels like maybe this could have been done sooner, but yeah, they're doing it now, and I think it plays out really nicely.
I do too. And the one thing that surprised me about it that I hadn't really considered fully before was just its ability to smooth out games that might be otherwise a non-game, particularly if you keep a 2-lander and you miss your 3rd land drop. If you have any cards that have plot 2, like you get to do something on turn 3, and that usually will buy you some amount of time to come back. And that to me is a real inflection point, right? Like Morph really does help smooth things out by being like, okay, you hit your 3rd land drop, you have something to do no matter what in a Morph set most of the time. But the issue that Morph and Disguise don't solve is probably the most common one in Limited, which is I mulliganed to 6, I kept a 2-lander, and I didn't draw another land. Like that story that has been told since Mirage, right? Like since we started drafting. And anything that you can do, cycling, like there's a reason cycling costs 2 most of the time, right? Like in its base form. It's like that is the place at which if I can spend some mana to help myself get out of this by either affecting the board, casting a 2-drop, doing anything to help prolong the game, I will. And plot does a very good job of that because yes, you don't get anything that turn, but you're not losing the game on turn 2, right? You might take a little bit of damage, but then you get on average 3 mana worth of creature the next turn, even if you miss your land drop. And that actually does go a long way to help prolonging the game. So you get it doesn't count, for the cards that have plot 3 and 4 and 5 and whatever, but the plot 2 cards really do help smooth things out as well. So I'm really impressed that, I'll tell you, when I first saw plot, I'm thinking like, this is kind of foretell. It's kind of, what's it called? What is it called? The ephemeron one, whatever.
Oh, suspend.
It kind of feels like a little bit of an amalgamation. I mean, most mechanics are this, but an amalgamation of older mechanics, right? They're all kicker. They're all like building blocks using similar stuff. And I kind of felt like, okay, this is cool. Like that's fine. Like I don't expect them to come up with like brand new novel stuff every time, but I kind of thought, all right, but then playing it out, it's like, no, this is really cool. Like this is interesting. And then of course they also made a bunch of cards in the set that care about like casting your second spell each turn in a turn, or having untapped mana when you cast a spell, or didn't cast it from your hand or whatever. So like it also gets supported that way. The other thing that's been cool, although I will say I kind of wish it was just this, is breaking news. We've loved bonus sheets since they started doing them. We wanted WotC to make them kind of an every set thing, and then they did, and we were happy about it. And I really think that bonus sheets add a cool twist, and breaking news has been really cool. There's more groups than this, but the ones that really catch my eye, the upside groups, if you will, there's just some really big, splashy, awesome stuff to try to go for, right? Cruel Ultimatum, Villainous Wealth, you talked about, Mindslaver. If you're Luis, Archive Trap, like doing just wild, expensive, crazy, fun, over the top stuff, but that's legitimately powerful and limited is really cool. But you just don't necessarily need that to be part of every draft you do. And the bonus sheet making these mythics in those spots where they don't come up very often, but they're still part of the experience of this set is just perfect. I love that. And I love seeing those cards pop up. And I've already had people sending me, BDM was sending me screenshots of him casting Cruel Ultimatum and then buying it back. You're Villainous Wealthing people for 13. That's cool. This is fun. Like any sequence like that prompts you to like send a screenshot to your friends. That's something that's really neat. And then there's also just like a bunch of raw power cards too. Mana Drain, which we opened today, but cards like Path to Exile, Fractured Identity, OG Oko, stuff like that are just like these sort of inordinately either efficient or powerful cards. But again, they don't pop up often enough so that it ruins the experience, but they get thrown in as a wrinkle, I think are really cool. Where are you at on breaking news?
I like it. I like bonus sheets. I like having these wild, crazy cards. I think that I'm a little surprised that they put things like Oko and Mana Drain. I guess Mana Drain's certainly not too broken for limited. Oko is actually, I guess, barely out of the top 10 in the set, but it's still just a ridiculous card. Like, come on, I don't really care what the stats say. Like, I know how good Oko is. I played against it in this format already. Mm-hmm. I don't mind cards that are strong, and I think that it makes more sense to have like the best cards be from the set itself, but they've largely accomplished that anyway.
Yeah.
I think that like Archive Trap is a card that's going to make – I've already had more fun with this format because of Archive Trap, Villainous Wealth, Cruel Ultimatum, Mindslaver. These are all cards I enjoy having. So yeah. I like breaking news. I think it's cool. Plus, this is just the classic Humphrey special of like he made this format just like super powerful. You know, there's like everything's so good, but then as a result – like, if everything's too good, is anything too good?
Right,
like,
it's balanced.
There's a lot going on, you know?
Now, the other two sheets, the special guests and the other one, I don't really get those. I feel like I would be very happy with just...
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, just having to know the extra sheet from breaking news and just leave the other ones out. I don't know the economics behind it. I'm assuming that these cards are put in for either to try to get more people to buy the packs or to supplement some format I don't play or something like that. So fine, they do what they have to do. It doesn't really ruin my experience or anything. But I will say that just from there's a feeling in the Magic community for the past number of years now that there's been a lot of sets coming out, that the card complexity's gone up a lot, and that it feels like as a Magic fan, you can't really follow everything anymore. Like it's overwhelming. Where before there would be people that would be like, yeah, I kind of buy one of everything that comes out in the year from WotC, you know, and now it's like that's just way too much. And there's way too much going on to really be able to follow it all. And this kind of embodies that, right? It's like, okay, we did this cool bonus sheet with this alternate art thing and all that. Okay, cool. And then it's like, well, here's another bonus sheet and here's another bonus sheet. It's like, okay, do I really need to know, you know, an extra 100 cards or whatever just to play this set? And it's like, if you're really competitive, kinda, you know, I mean, you could get away with the 2 extra bonus sheets of just reading the cards when they pop up and just rolling with it that way. You really do need to know the breaking news cards, though, if you're going to play this set seriously. Like, these come up all the time. They are very much part of the set. But like I said, that's more of a nitpick. Overall, breaking news are the cards that you see draft in and draft out. The other ones pop up like 1 in 8 packs or something, and these ones are every pack at least. So in practice, you know, those things don't really hurt too bad. And this just seems like a very thumbs up bonus sheet for breaking news. What do you think about the art, though? I wish that the colors stood out a little bit more on the mana costs and the artwork.
I'm not a big fan of that. I think that it just makes it a lot harder to read than it needs to be.
I think so too.
It's kind of where I'm at.
It's difficult to differentiate the cards both in color, mana cost, and then the artwork as well. So I get it. I mean, they went hard and they wanted to do a thing, and that's fine. But I do wish it was a little bit more clear what was what there. I'm curious to see how that goes at the Pro Tour when I'm commentating people drafting as well. When one of those breaking news cards also goes flying by,
because they have like the prosperity post on the top. Like prosperity is a card name, so like seeing a card name on top of the card name is just kind of weird to me.
It is weird. Okay, any cards you wanted to talk about or hit up?
I had a big list of cards, or not big, a list of cards that I wanted to mention that have played in an interesting fashion one way or another. One is Getaway Glamour, so that's you get to blink a thing until end of turn and destroy target creature if it's got the highest power or it is tied for the highest power. And the note I have with this is that it will let you go ahead and target anything you want with the destroy effect. It just will tell you whether it works at the end. So you do have to make sure you got it right, because it checks on resolution. And that's kind of the whole idea, is like you blink out your big thing and then make it so their thing's now the biggest or whatever, but it's not going to work out particularly well for you if you do it wrong, and that's something that's easy to do wrong. You can also blink their or your creature. There's a lot of play to this card. I found this card to be very cool, very strong, but not the easiest to use for sure.
That's what I was going to say. You know, I had somebody use it against me where they just, took out one of my creatures temporarily and then destroyed another one. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm down 2 creatures this combat, and that can be a major tempo swing.
Yeah, so that card is good. I really liked Outlaw Medic. That's the 2-mana 1/3 lifelink that has when it dies, draw a card.
Yeah, it's
just such a great little speed bump. You just always feel good about blocking with it. There's just no time when this card works out poorly for you, basically.
Yeah, these cards are so emboldening. You're just like, block, I don't care. Give me my card.
Yeah. Really, really cool, and I think that this card is pretty good at fighting the speed of the format. If that's what you're worried about.
So there's your speed bump that you were talking about. One of your speed bumps. Mm-hmm. What about Canyon Crab?
So Canyon Crab's 2 mana for the 0/5. It loots end of turn if you don't play a spell from your hand, and it has blue and 1. Give it +2 -2. Mm-hmm. And I've also liked this one as a kind of way to just get on the board early. You don't end up feeling like you're under too much pressure if you play this turn 2, and then getting to loot every time you pass the turn is awesome. Like I really like the way this card plays out.
What about This Town Ain't Big Enough?
That's a pretty tricky one. That one is able to kind of double bounce their thing, can be really good. Like I beat Full Steam Ahead in one game by just going bounce, and your 2 big creatures, getting to block, bounce your creature to save it from combat, bounce their big attacker. Or if they go like kill your creature and you go, okay, this town ain't big enough, bounce my creature to save it. And then at that point you get to bounce their creature as well. it's just got a lot of combos with it, and I found the card to be pretty strong overall.
Yeah, I have too. Any of these cards that you can use on your stuff or their stuff seems to be, again, probably just a result of the high power level format, but ETB abilities and stuff like that really do come in. Highway Robbery.
Highway Robbery is a really cool card. So this is the Tormenting Voice, but I think this is by far the best Tormenting Voice we've seen. Because it does a bunch of things. One is it lets you sacrifice a land or discard a card. So imagine the games where you like top deck Tormenting Voice on turn 9.
Yeah.
Well, getting to sack a land instead of discard a card is like a huge
it's
upside.
Game changer. Yeah.
The other thing this card lets you do is on turn 2, you get to cast it by plotting it. So you get to spend the mana on it without actually deciding which of the modes you're going to use. And just kind of put it on layaway for later if you didn't have another 2-drop. That's also really strong because one of the downsides to casting a Tormenting Voice on turn 2 is, let's say your opening hand has 4 lands and 3 spells, and you're going to go, okay, I'm going to Tormenting Voice on 2. I haven't drawn another land yet. Okay, well, I guess I can't discard my 4th land because what if I draw 2 spells off that and I end up missing my 4th land drop in 2 turns? Like that would be a disaster. So you discard a spell, you draw 2 lands off it. And it's like, ugh. Well, with Highway Robbery, you just cast it you plot it on turn 2. You don't need to cast it on the next turn unless you're going to miss a land drop or don't have a 3-drop or whatever. But like if you're curving out, you just wait to cast it on turn 4 or turn 5 when maybe you have your plot synergy.
Totally.
At that point, you know whether you can discard a land. You know whether you can, bin a spell. And it just gives you the most power and flexibility that we've ever seen out of this effect, both in terms of plot and because it lets you discard or sacrifice. So this is quite a bit better than any Tormenting Voice variant we've seen. And I just want people to know that because look, red's not the best color. You're not always going to run this card. But if you do find yourself in like red-blue, like this card is actually quite good in there. And I think it's even playable in some of the other red decks just because of the flexibility.
What about Thunder Salvo?
I've liked this a lot too, but I've also drafted red-blue 3 times now. And like that is exactly where that card fits. So I'm not saying it's always going to be great, but like I found this to be a 2-mana deal for enough of the time that I haven't found it to be too difficult to kind of get going that way.
And you mentioned Dance of the Tumbleweeds before. That's the one that lets you search your library for a basic or desert and put it onto the battlefield. I just think
it's really strong that your enabler is also a payoff. Whenever you get to do that, you should pay attention to it because it's the sort of thing that like really makes it worth drafting this deck. When at common, you have a card which fixes your mana and ramps you, but also is just like a 7/7, 8/8, like just giant creature. Like it's a 2-for-1 also, because when you cast it for 6 mana, you get a big creature and you get a land. So I just overall think that Dance of the Tumbleweeds is the kind of thing where I see that and I'm like, the Deserts deck's going to be pretty good because of this card.
Right. I mean, it solves a fundamental problem with ramp spells, right? Which is that when you draw them late in the game, they are horrendous. And now all of a sudden it's like actually pretty good. What about Make Your Own Luck?
Make Your Own Luck is cool. That's the 3 blue-green, draw 3, and then if you want, you can plot 1. Yeah. And I think this card, it's a lot better than a 5-mana draw 3. Because yes, on the same turn that you play it, it's not doing a whole lot more than that, right? It's effectively 5-mana draw 3. But the fact that you get to plot like any card of those 3, so like a 5-drop or a 6-drop even, means that you kind of get that tempo back the next turn. This is a card I found to be very effective in kind of like the 5-color Deserts decks where you're just like play a thing, stall a thing, and then just go Make Your Own Luck into Make Your Own Luck, or Make Your Own Luck into like a Cactarantula, and then you just end up far ahead on cards and board presence after a turn or two with this card. Yeah. We're pretty down on like the 4-mana draw 3, for example, the 2 blue one.
Right.
Make Your Own Luck is a significant step up from that. Yeah,
you have room enough for 1 or 2 of these type of cards in these decks, and this is the type that you want. What about Arid Archway? Man, I've loved that card.
So that's the colorless desert that when ETBs return another land, and if you return a desert, surveil one, and it taps for 2 colorless, it's a bounce land. It's, kind of like in Ravnica, and you got to respect those. They're so good. I think that Arid Archway is a card you should play in most of your decks. It's not every deck. If you're having color issues, like if your deck really has struggles to kind of get the right colors, or like, you're playing 3 colors or whatever. But I have not left this in my sideboard yet. Just getting a 2-for-1 by playing a land that taps for 2 mana, like it means if you drew this and 4 other lands, you have 6 mana off 5 cards. That is
That's
a 2-for-1. You like a land that's a 2-for-1 that sometimes even surveils and gets you another desert ping. Like you can't really ask for a whole lot more than that, to be honest.
The only time when that card isn't good is if your mana costs are very, very like double mana, significant. If outside of that, I've loved that card. It is, it unmulligans you. It is sweet. It's really good card. But again, if you have a whole bunch of, double black, double red or whatever, then okay, it does go down a little bit. Works really well with any of the X spells or the expensive stuff too. Okay, let's call it a show there, Luis. In Humphreys we trust. Are we back?
Oh yeah, we are so back.
We're so back, baby. I'm excited for this set. This feels really good. It feels really nice to have a set that doesn't have that intense pressure. I think it's still going to be a quick set. The fundamentals haven't changed. You still have to do something every turn. You still have to use up your mana. You still have to affect the board. But I think the taking a little bit of pressure off of that 1 mana slot might be the difference between, having the deserts deck be a thing and not. Think about it. What was the name of the ones we had before a couple sets ago that just didn't work, right? The dual land.
The Caves deck,
right? It just didn't come together.
It made like a late push to being okay, but it still wasn't very good. Like I don't think anyone
and it should have been like
great.
Awesome. It should have been super fun. They dedicated a bunch of slots to it, and it didn't end up being a thing. That's how that felt right here. Remember, you and I both tried it on day 1, and we were both like, not so much. And then it kind of just faded away. But I've been drafting a bunch of deserts now, and it's working. Like it's fun. It's cool. Yes, there's some tension there, but it's really good. So we'll continue to go down the journey here. I also wanted to mention, by the way, that the Pro Tour is next week. We'll do the show in the earlier part of the week probably, but on Friday, I'll be doing commentary from the PT with Monty DeVuti, and him and I are going to be bringing you the draft on Friday and the draft on Saturday. So there's like 10 days between when this set came out and when the PT players are sitting down and playing, a huge chunk of their tournament in Limited. So this is going to be one of those really quick turnarounds. It's really going to benefit the people who focus the most and who are the best at sussing out new formats. So that's really cool too. That's going to do it for this episode of the show. If you want to find us on social media, Marshall_LR and Luis's LSV, pretty much everywhere. I'll have links in the show notes for Luis's Discord for the team draft league. So you can take a look out for that. I just think that that's really cool. What do you call it? The Divination Team Draft League or Luis's Team Draft League?
That's exactly what it's called.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll have that in there. So anybody who's interested can check that out. We want to thank our sponsor, Ultimate Guard, as well as our supporters over on Patreon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, we'll see you next week.
All right. I want to mention the coolest Doomsday kill that I've gotten so far. So I was playing Vintage Cube, of course. I had Doomsday and Thassa's Oracle in my deck. So Doomsday, like it's black, sorcery. You lose half your life. You basically get to pick up your deck in graveyard, pick 5 cards and exile the rest, put those 5 in any order. And the way that kills with Oracle is Thassa's Oracle's blue for a 1/3. And then when it ETBs, you look at the top X cards, where X is the number of blue pips you have in play, your devotion to blue. And if you have X or less cards in your library, you just win the game. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of kills involving the Oracle. And this one, I was under the gun against Sandy Dog, of course, red-white aggro. I had Thassa's Oracle under Shelldock Isle. And that was really important because what I ended up doing was going Doomsday, cycle 1 card. So I have 4 cards left in my deck. Uh-huh. I evoked a blue card to cast Subtlety. That's the 3/3 from Modern Horizons. Yeah. MH2 with nothing on the stack or anything. The Subtlety comes into play and it's about to die from evoke. But in response to it dying from its evoke, I Shelldocked the Thassa's Oracle out.
To
and
get
now
to
there's
4 pips?
Blue pips in play. And I got to do that. And
that's awesome.
Extremely satisfying. It's hard to describe.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
How much more satisfying that was than almost any other kill I've gotten. And it was a pretty big game. Like getting to kind of pull that off was great. Of course, my deck wasn't very good. You beat me the other 2 games. We lost the draft. All those things did also happen. I have to admit. But for that one brief shining moment,
dude,
I was getting there on the
That
Doomsday.
is a sweet kill.